Welcome to episode 21 of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I'm your host and current world champion, Kofi. And I'm also here with my co-host, Matt Mueller.
Kofi Mania has begun.
Kofi Mania has officially begun.
So
Welcome
excited.
to the new day of Kofi Mania.
I'm so proud.
I love that we have a winged eagle belt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And joining us today for this new era of Kofi Mania, we have the queen of anime herself. Megan Peters is back on the podcast.
I'm back. Hello.
And we just didn't bring her back for anything. Of course, we brought her back to do some work because there's some big new anime things we're going to be talking about today, including the premiere of One Punch Man Season 2. We're also going to be talking about a new Walking Dead series that's coming to AMC. We're getting our first hints of what Phase 4 of the MCU will be all about after Avengers Endgame. And we are going to review DC's Shazam.
Shazam!
Shazam's in theaters now, so we're going to talk about it.
Say the name.
I already did. I'm not giving that guy any more royalties than he's already getting. So, all right, let's kick it off. And to kick it off today, we are going to hop over to the Marvel camp, and we're going to talk about the first kind of hints of Phase 4, or lack thereof, that we're getting after the Avengers Endgame press junket, which was held this past weekend. And we had our own all-day cowboy, Brandon B.D. Davis, out there to kind of help gather up all the scoops. But there were a lot of things that kind of came out of that junket. No Endgame spoilers, so don't hold your breath for any of those. Because, yeah, this was like the most spoiler-free junket that we've probably ever been to. They didn't even get to see much of the movie. But we did get to talk with people like Kevin Feige or the Russo brothers about what the future of the MCU is kind of looking like. And we learned a couple key things. First of all, we learned that we probably are not going to hear anything solid about Phase 4 until sometime after Spider-Man Far From Home comes out. So not even after Endgame, but after Endgame, a couple months, Spider-Man Far From Home comes out, which is the official beginning of Phase 4 of the MCU. And then it seems like Kevin Feige hinted that we will be getting some more official announcements about what these next slate of Marvel movies is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we already have some idea because, you know, obviously we do this for a job and we've heard a lot of things. And so far it's movies like, I mean, aside from all the sequels we expect, Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, or whatever else they're going to be kind of doing, and another Ant-Man movie.
Yes.
Captain Marvel 2, yes. I'm not leaving her out. I'm a Captain Marvel enjoyer, so I'm not leaving her out. But we're also going to get some new things. We're going to get a Black Widow movie. The Eternals has kicked up a lot of casting. Shang-Chi is still in development. So there's some interesting things coming on the horizon. And like I said, we're going to start to probably get more of the solid look at what Phase 4 is going to be when Spider-Man Far From Home is out. Now, I don't know if that means, like, you know, anything exciting for Comic-Con per se. Because I forget, when does Far From Home hit? Is it before or after Comic-Con this year? Is it before?
That's a good question.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, that's one we should probably...
Far From Home is July 5th, so it'll
it's
be
before. So, okay, so
Like right
this could be...
before.
So after Far From Home means could be right in time for Comic-Con
And we get
presentation.
that calendar thing where they show,
Yeah,
like,
calendar, like...
here's the first part. Those
And
are
I
like
see
my
some
favorite.
empty dots.
And I would be
Feige
surprised.
said that he doesn't want to do that anymore. Like,
I'd be
that-
shocked.
we
Favorite
probably
thing.
Yeah, no, but the time I believe him. I mean, there could
Yeah.
there's any number of ways Disney can now do this on their own. They don't need San
No.
Diego Comic-Con, but the timing does at least sync up to, they could give fans a little something at Comic-Con if they want to. If not, there's stuff like what, D23, is there one this year? Yeah. So there's the D23 convention,
Yeah, at this
and there's
point,
a
they
whole
don't
bunch of
have
stuff.
to do it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
MCU could be its own event. They don't
Yeah.
need Comic-Con, but it was a great tradition to kind of do that. It would be kind of nice to have that tradition continue into this new era of Phase 4.
Yeah.
Bring out some new stars. Like
Those
they did
discussions
the
in the
original.
office, like when they brought out Brie Larson and introduced her for the first time.
Well, I'm
that
talking
was
about
such a
after
cool thing.
Endgame, we can go, I mean, it could be bigger than that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you remember, like, one of my first big Comic-Cons was the 2010 one where they brought out the original cast
Yeah.
of the Avengers, and that tore down the house. So, you know, there is a possibility that you could do something like that with a whole new slate of stars or stuff like that. But, you know, at this point, the future's so uncertain about Disney and Marvel, their own thing, and Comic-Con, you know, we don't know. But it's possible. But in that time frame, around Comic-Con, after Far From Home, you should start to keep your ears open for, you know, some big MCU Phase 4 announcements. And I'm sure we'll all have a better idea and speculation after we see Endgame and kind of know where, it leaves things. So.
Set up that Dark
Don't get
Hawk
too excited
solo.
about
Yeah,
X-Men.
don't get too excited. Again, Jim Riccardi always blowing my next segue. Like, basically, while we're saying all this, there is one thing that fans have been asking or getting rabid for is, the Disney Fox deal is done. X-Men, Fantastic Four now belong back with Disney Marvel.
Yeah.
But Feige also killed our hopes in saying we're going to learn something about Phase 4, after Far From Home. But we're not going to learn about that because don't expect to see the X-Men. He alluded to that the fact that Marvel has had a 5-year plan before the Disney deal was ever completed and they got those characters back for sure. Mm-hmm. And so that they're going to still play out whatever plan they have before they even get to something like the X-Men. I mean, he basically said it's
totally
a
makes
long
sense.
wait. And, oh, man, here we go. Because now we're back to the same argument where we were fighting about just a couple weeks ago about...
Sounds really familiar. It's
Yeah,
almost like
how
I've
do we
heard that
want-
before.
Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that they could still be
The
teased in
flashback
Endgame even
again.
if we don't see them for
Could be.
5 years. It's called the Thanos plan. It's happened
Could be.
before. So, like...
We'll see.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it seems like right now there's no immediate plans for the X-Men. I don't know how I feel about this because I don't know how much I believe it either because plans always change at Marvel. Things are fluid. And I don't know. I think it depends, as always, on... They never say it. They always say, we have this plan. It's never going to change. But they do pay attention to how things hit or miss or...
Yeah, I mean, there was
whatever.
an Inhumans movie at
Yeah,
one point,
exactly,
and
right?
that never came to fruition, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What are you,
I would
what are you-
imagine
what are you
the
talking about?
Fantastic Four have a better shot of being on
Absolutely.
screen before the X-Men do.
Well,
hot
way
take, I
easier
approve
to
of.
implement.
Yeah, way easier to
Absolutely.
implement and way easier to please people with if you just give them a halfway competent Fantastic Four movie. Yeah.
The legacy
So-
of that.
It'll be
More
interesting to see
movies.
because I think, there's a lot of exciting things on the slate, but like Phase 4, some of these movies, I mean, Eternals and Shang-Chi aren't as exciting as seeing like Thor and Captain America get their own thing. So, I mean, depends on how the MCU kind of shakes out. If things start to slow down, then like don't be surprised with, the first X-Men Wolverine,
Yeah,
just
I mean,
all of a
without
sudden
the
going into
sequels
production.
right now, like without factoring in Doctor Strange 2 and like all these sequels that we know are going to happen, Black Panther, all that, just taking the original stuff that's been teased and talked about. Black Widow's the only thing that I remotely care about. I don't care about Eternals.
No.
Never cared about that. Shang-Chi could be interesting, but we also saw Iron Fist, right? So we're kind of waiting to see if
Right, but
Marvel
this
can
will
do
be,
that
but
right.
This will be done by Marvel Studios.
I know, but I'm saying like I'm
yeah.
still
Yeah, but a Marvel thing about a kind of not superpowered, semi-superpowered kung fu master is something people have seen before, the concept.
That's true.
Eternals at least has going for it. I don't know what that movie's really going to be. Like, it's so different and odd that, you can really do some cool stuff with it. But we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, but all right, so we're gonna hang in there. I mean, at this point, we gotta just make it down the finish line to Endgame. That's what we're really trying to get to now. But like we said, after that, after Spider-Man, we'll be kind of open and have a bigger roadmap and start to hear more, and that's gonna be pretty exciting. So, moving right along, we are getting a new Walking Dead series. This series just won't die. It keeps on going.
Much like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, The Walking Dead. But this one, I actually have to say, I mean, I do like the expansion. I liked what Fear of Walking Dead has become. I even like the series now that Rick Grimes has left. We've been talking about this off and on. But this new series will be kind of about the first generation raised in the zombie apocalypse. It will center around 2 female leads. And this is interesting to me because this kind of is the potential that I always saw in like Carl's story. Like the best Carl stories were the ones where like, I can't forget which season specifically because it's all mashed up in my head, but somewhere in the middle there where Carl started turning into a psycho and was just killing people and just didn't have that attachment because he had been raised in this world and had to, cut his own sister out of his mom and do all that stuff. Like that whole concept of a kid who was raised in the zombie apocalypse and was kind of detached and a little psycho was very interesting. And it was probably Carl's best storylines.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think a show that kind of takes that concept and really goes into it is a much different thing than The Walking Dead, which is all about people brooding and looking off about the life they lost and how the world's changed and what they're trying to hold on to from the old world and, keep the fire lit of, humanity and civilization and, basic empathy and care for one another. Like, it's different when 2 kids are just raised in extreme violence and horror and death and loss, and what kind of characters does that create and how they function in this world to be able to survive and grow. Obviously, these kids have skills. They have survival skills. They have killing skills. Like, that could be really interesting to me. So I'm kind of hoping that this series will get into that and actually provide a new dimension to the whole Walking Dead universe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was surprised to see, like, this Walking Dead core series has been really well reviewed. Critics really like it, right? It's seen an uptick, not in viewers, but it's seen an uptick in reception, right? So I thought, oh, they'll write that out a little bit. We still have the movies coming. Fear is doing fine, from what I understand. I've never been like a giant Fear person, but this one, I was amazed to see them announce a third one. However, what I will say, this is probably has me the most intrigued I've been in a while, other than the Rick Grimes movie. I'm most excited for that because I want to see stuff about the Cure. But aside from that, yeah, that holds the most reservoir for character development, really seeing how they deal, like, what do schools look like in that era? Do they even have that anymore? Like, how did these kids, were they like Carl? Were they just raised, depending on where we see them, like in what communities did they rise up in? And you also have an opportunity to really explore other pieces of the map. So I'm cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so it's going to start production pretty soon, and it's looking to air in 2020, so 10 episodes in the first season. So this isn't a long down the pike wait we're talking about. This is like next TV season.
Yeah, that's the only thing that has me nervous because I really want this to like explore the psychology of like what does that do. I think it's The Walking Dead this last season has done a great job exploring kind of psychology, especially if it's like female leads with Michonne. I'm hoping that this one will have the time and take the time necessary to
funny you should mention that
understand what's all happening in those brains, especially depending on how old these female leads are going to be. Brains, yes. I see what you did there.
You see what I did there?
Yes.
I did it.
That's actually funny that you say that because Sarah Burnett, the president of AMC, actually came out, and we have an article on the site about it saying this is part of the network's overall mission to explore more complicated female leads. So this is one of the intentions of picking these specific characters and to give more Michonnes and Carols and these characters who arguably have been the real standouts of The Walking Dead. And dealing, especially somebody like Carol, if you look at that whole story about going from who she was in the beginning of the show with her husband to who she is now. And so I think, and having female leads, taking the child psychology and the whole notion of, gender and female and what does it mean to grow up in this world and things like that. Like, I think that could be really interesting and handled really well. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. So they are trying to feed your demo. So
hey,
rejoice.
Give it to me. Give me Riverdale zombies.
You can find more details about this on our Walking Dead page on Comicbook.com. We're going to keep it moving now because, we are called Comic Book. So we should talk about some comic books.
Surprise.
And as always, Matt and Megan are two of our big comic reviewer gurus for the site. And so they're going to take us through a little bit about what's going on this week, or at least Matt is.
It's comic time. I need a little jingle or something.
Yeah, you do need to come up with one. It's 21 episodes in. You should have a jingle for your comic stuff right now.
This week there's a lot to like from several different companies. I know last time I think we went very heavy Marvel, which made sense. But Detective Comics 1001 officially kicks off the Arkham Knight arc. So if you played Batman Arkham Knight and you're kind of interested in to see what the comics version of this character, because it is different. And by the way, let me mark spoilers here. So if you don't want to know what happens in this week's comics, stop listening for a minute or just forward a little bit. Because in this book, essentially, Gotham gets a second sun. Like, essentially, he creates a sun over Gotham to take Batman out of the darkness, to essentially bring light and make this guy fight in the light, right? And he creates like an army of knights. Like, so there's more knights, but he is in fact the leader. It's really interesting. Like, there's a really good premise for it going forward. We'll see if they deliver on that. But in this issue, it's very interesting.
Who's the main writer on this book now?
Tomasi.
You could just get a bunch of LED lights for Gotham.
I mean, technically you could, but it wouldn't be nearly as dramatic.
Oh, yeah. Second suns.
So that's
do what you need to do.
It's kind of cool. And
so there's like a physical, like burning gas of fire,
an
is
actual sun.
Okay.
Yeah, create essentially like this little mini star above Gotham. But it's in the middle of night when he's fighting, and then all of a sudden it's day, and now it's forever day. And how does a hero who just that's what he lives in deal
I
with
would just
that.
imagine Batman's just like, that's weird, and continues to kick some guys'
I mean,
ass.
yeah, you'd
I
think.
feel like it's not going to stop him.
This was also dealt with in The Signal as well, but it's an interesting premise. Captain Marvel #4. Of course, we were going to get away without me mentioning a Captain Marvel book.
Yes.
Thing is, though, if you are a fan, did you have a chance to read it yet?
Yes.
Okay, so the Carol Rogue thing has been like a long time part of
That's
this character,
old school.
right?
That is old school.
And they deal with it in a really cool way. They kind of find Kelly Thompson kinds of finds a way to twist that whole dynamic between them, come up with something really cool. I've been loving this book. I imagine have you been liking this so far?
A+.
All right, there.
Yeah, that's always weird with them because she's always like, hey, remember when you like basically violated me, stole my life, and left me for dead? You remember that?
And they tackle
Then
that
I
here.
went in your psyche and messed everything.
Yeah, they tackle that here, and like her inner monologue is kind of funny. Also, we have Go-Go Power Rangers #19, which this is building towards the big Forever Rangers like one shot, which is going to kind of tie in the beginning of the Green Ranger saga, Rita's origin, and like the Rangers swapping colors. Like there's kind of 3, and Alpha 1, the original Alpha. So there's like 4 different kind of mini stories all building to this one thing. It's been really interesting to see like Rita essentially battle with the ghost of her mother over being like taken as a kid. And there's no one thought there was this much character depth in Rita Repulsa, but there is, and it's been really entertaining.
You might be Power Rangers' best salesman.
Yes, right here.
So we also have Prodigy #4, which Mark Millar book, Raphael Albuquerque's art. This book surprises snot out of me every month. I adore this book. It's essentially about this guy named Edison Crane, who can essentially, he's just like a really brilliant, it's kind of like a Tony Stark type of character, but he can run, his brain can literally like multitask in, like he can be solving a world crisis in one compartment of his brain and also be like going to the deli and arguing with somebody over like what cut of meat is better, and then also be trying to solve an ancient riddle. Like he can multitask in his brain, and the way they visualize it in the book, you're seeing it all like happen in real time. It's a very like Indiana Jones,
like
James
dramatic
Bond
reenactment of my biography.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. It did say Kofi, thanks to Kofi in the headlines. That's right there. But it's a
World
really
champ
cool
Kofi
book.
to you.
It's a really interesting book. I really dig it. This seems born for a TV series at some point. It is with Netflix, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this as a Netflix series later on. Winter Soldier #5, which I know Megan really likes.
Yes, Winter Soldier, this kind of reimagination. If you've not been reading it, it's basically just catches up with Bucky Barnes. You know, he's got that beard looking real rugged again. He's kind of set up this whole, service with Sharon Carter to basically help, people who were once in this position get out of the current lives they're in and set them up kind of like witness protection program a la Bucky. But basically he discovers that there's another little Winter Soldier running around. He basically adopts this kid, and it's them running around trying to figure out what does redemption mean. And it has been surprisingly good. I've always been kind of wary of this character, especially since his bump in the MCU has just kind of been super hyped, and I am guilty of that. I am a big fan of Bucky Barnes. But this series has surprisingly held up very strongly for the 5 issues we've gone through. So
Okay, I might need to read
big
that.
recommendation. It gives you all the like really cute oh, Bucky's a dad kind of feelings. So if you've ever wondered what that looks like in your fan fiction dreams,
Marvel,
here you go.
Marvel's like the Bucky thirst isn't extensive enough.
Oh,
You need
no,
that dad
it's-
thirst, the
you get some-
heartthrob thirst,
the dad
bad boy
bod.
thirst.
That dad bod.
All right.
There you go. That's my contribution.
And then wrapping up real quick, just Amazing Spider-Man #19 is the 3rd part of Hunted, which we talked about previously on the show. And then last but not least, if you are a fan of the Adventure Zone, the McElroy brothers are writing their own little mini-series as part of War of the Realms, which is War of the Realms Journey into Mystery. So I know a lot of fans are really big fans of the podcast they do. Essentially, they do like a live D&D tabletop experience, and they've had a ton of adventures, and they're really popular. So if you kind of wanted to see them write their own comic, this is your chance. So it's kind of cool, kind of different.
And they're bringing back Journey into Mystery?
For this is kind of like a one couple issues thing. We'll see I imagine if it sells well, maybe later on they would get like an ongoing or something, but this is kind of just a trial run.
All right, and is that it? Anything else
That's it,
for
no.
comic stands? All right, well, it sounds like we got a lot to pick up if you want, a lot of variety there. All right, everyone, stay tuned because when we get back, we are going to review DC's Shazam movie, and we're going to talk about some big things happening in anime, starting with One Punch Man Season 2. All right, so out of everybody here, some of us did our homework and went out to see Shazam. Because, you know, we work at Comicbook.com and we want to cover these things.
I feel like you're shading
some of us are Matt Mueller.
He's shading someone who watched a ton of wrestling this weekend.
Yeah, you probably
you were busy. You
watched like 8 hours of WrestleMania. So.
I've watched like 16 hours of wrestling
Kofi
content.
thanks you. Kofi thanks you for that. So I can't get too mad at you because Kofi does thank you for covering his.
When did this third
story.
person?
I'm talking about my hive mind brother, Kofi Kingston.
They're all connected.
Yeah,
Kofi
we are
Mania.
legion, man.
I'm buying you that shirt at some point.
Megan and I have both seen Shazam.
Yes.
And yeah, we've written some articles about it on the site already.
Yes.
I'll let you go first, Megan. What was your impression of Shazam?
Yeah. So going in, I was excited. I've always been a huge fan of Zachary Levi, and I thought that the trailers were always really funny. Wasn't as familiar with the Captain Marvel comics or Shazam, I guess. Now we got some Captain Marvels running around everywhere. As far as the movie goes, I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was really funny. I felt it was the most, I hate to like do the comparison, but like the Marvel formulaic for an origin story, you know, kind of bringing in, going through the past, had the humor down. I thought, no spoilers because I don't do that. But in the scenes where Billy Batson is trying to figure out his powers with Freddy, had me like crying in tears, like laughing at some points. I thought I did pretty good job, though self-contained in itself within the DC kind of extended universe, despite some hilarious cameos and Easter eggs. Did a really great job at providing, you know, like where Shazam could go next.
Those 7 deadly sins were creepy as hell.
Okay, there's one scene, again, no spoilers, but it
might as
gets...
well-
We can go, yeah. We can
Okay,
go.
can I do spoilers?
You're fine,
Yeah, we can do spoilers.
There's like with that scene where the 7 deadly sins are like in the office and they are like, it becomes like a weird horror. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like I was visibly cringing and I like wanted to close my eyes.
Nobody in my theater expected the brother to be thrown out of the building.
No.
When that happened, everyone just went, whoa!
Like the scene where all the bodies are being pressed against the frosted glass. I was like, there were these kids behind me and they were like legitimately freaked out.
That's where I come in with my kind of take on Shazam, which is I don't think I enjoyed it so much as a lot of other people in the office did. And I think that scene is exactly where it kind of hammers home for me what I didn't like. I found that the superhero stuff in Shazam was great. The kids, the humor. I loved seeing the variety of adult actors that they have come into. If you don't know, at the end of the movie, basically, Shazam shares his power with his foster siblings, and they become these characters from the comics known as the Shazam family, where they all become versions and get a little bit of Shazam's powers. Except Mary. We didn't learn anything about Mary or her powers in the movie. They don't tell you what she can do specifically, which is a weird oversight.
Agility, isn't it? Or not agility, endurance.
Oh,
Maybe.
Because she was able to keep fighting that monster and not get tired. At least that's what I took from it.
I don't know. Hey, maybe. Maybe that was it. That one was a little unclear. The rest are pretty clear. Like one kid has lightning, one kid has strength, the girl Dudley or Dora, whatever her name is Megan Good is really fast. But it was cool seeing those cameos from like Adam Brody and Megan Good and DJ Corona and like all the other people they brought in to play the adult version.
Brody is like the perfect adult.
Freddie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it
Jack
was
Laser.
so great.
And after
yeah.
and it was just great because everybody who's like knew about or did this, like, you know, I did this when Justice League Mortal started. I was covering stuff right when that was supposed to happen. And he was supposed to be the Flash in that movie. And so this was great to see him in a DC movie. And I loved all that stuff. But it was the villain stuff that really made it a mixed bag for me overall, I think. Because I didn't buy the Dr. Savannah story, and I feel so bad for Mark Strong, who I feel like is trying so hard in these DC movies, Green Lantern and this, but doesn't get a proper shake because it just felt out of place. Like you see one scene at the beginning of the movie that didn't work. In the beginning of the movie does not work for me when like he's in the car with his sibling and their dad, and they're having an argument, and they clearly pick on him or think he's the weird kid in the family. But there's nothing that tells you why this guy later on in life goes back to his family's company. First of all, that car they're driving in the beginning doesn't tell you they're billionaires like Tony Stark. It looks like a regular like 80s, 90s family trip and then like, or 70s. And then like later on, he's coming back into their company with these demonic figures that he's dragging along. And he's throwing his brother right out the window, killing his dad, murdering everybody in the dad's company. And it's like, really? those childhood arguments are that bad for you? Like, really? So I didn't really buy his motivation. I felt like the Savannah stuff was so rushed. It's just like this scene with him, then he kills everybody in his family, and after he's been at his company and watched some lady disintegrate so she can open a door, and it's all this horrific stuff, and he's just like,
I think it's interesting that knowing, you know, in the interviews that have come out that like that role was supposed to have been Black Adam's, and I think outside of like the very beginning intro part of it, everything else felt like it would have been a fine fit for Black Adam.
Yeah, exactly. If Black Adam had gone back to the Rock of Eternity for revenge, gotten the 7 deadly sins, and was just all he would have had to do in a city is chase around looking for Shazam, like that makes sense. I think one thing maybe I got tripped up as a longtime DC Comics fan is Dr. Savannah has been such an interesting character over the years as a mad scientist type who invents a bunch of crazy stuff, and like
he's never been a brute.
The whole magical
but also I feel like
just
he was more of
very
a benefactor than a mad scientist, right? Like he was funding basically all of that research and not necessarily like doing it himself. Like there only is that shot in his secret office that had all of the weird and crazy stuff on it. Do you get a glimpse that he's this super genius? But like outside of that, he's just a
and the magical aspect of his story is a new addition to this character. It's like a retcon that came around, like, you know, with the New 52 reboot in 2011 and all that stuff. So, like, I thought there's a lot to that character that was left on the thing to make a generic villain who's just basically like a homing beacon for Shazam the whole time, just chasing him around the city. I do like where the movie leaves it because Dr. Savannah is there to become more of maybe a mastermind kind of villain in the future of the franchise, so that's good. But that part kind of let me down, and I think that was a drag on the film for me. But otherwise, I really did enjoy, like I said, the kind of Superman meets Big kind of story and coming of age, and Billy Batson, his whole backstory with, you know, finding his mom and doing all that stuff. Like that scene with the mom is very powerful and so Philadelphia, by the way. Like just the screwed up family stuff. Like I was like, yeah, that's Philly. Yeah, so it was for me kind of a mixed bag, but still, overall, I gotta say the DCEU seems to be heading in a much better direction with Wonder Woman.
They're stringing some wins.
Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, for whatever flaws they may have. Overall, they are very entertaining. They're bringing these heroes to life to a whole new generation and a worldwide audience, and kind of doing a good job of it. So I'm not going to complain too much. And I'm kind of now, I'm really excited for like Wonder Woman 1984. We've done a whole thing on here about Joker and how I'm excited for that. So future's looking not too bad for DC.
What did you, just curious, when you saw it, what did you gauge the reactions to be in the post-credit scene? Because
nobody understood the post-credit scene. I still don't understand the post-credit scene.
That was a Mr. Mind cut.
Yeah.
So I noticed it in the first scene, and I was like, "That's familiar." And then I noticed it again, and then it took me a second. As I was leaving, my boyfriend was like, "What was that?"
See,
what?
I didn't even put that together until you just said that. I totally forgot.
Yeah, there's a foreshadow of
you
like,
see it, and I was
on.
like, okay, wait, that's really tiny, and I couldn't see it because it was dark. And then when the glass was broken, when Billy Batson came in, I was like, what? And then at the end, I was like,
maybe we should explain who is this person.
Oh, this is true.
So the post-credit scene is Savannah like writing all this mystical stuff. He's going nuts in his own like little solitary confinement cell. And he's visited by a caterpillar wearing like a voice translation box.
Yeah.
Who is a DC character named, I forget. What is the name of the character?
Mr. Mind.
Mr. Mind.
Yeah, okay.
That's a nice golden age supervillain name.
Put together
Mr. Mind.
He put together the whole League of Villains and crazy people.
I'm not familiar with him. That was too deep of a cut for me.
But honestly, that's what I heard. I heard it was literally like half the people just were like, what the hell did I just watch? Like no one understood.
No.
To be fair, almost no one knew who Thanos was.
No, when Avengers came out, who's that smiling?
Yeah, but I'm willing to bet a lot more people knew Thanos.
A lot more.
Thanos has a much better team than Caterpillar, man.
Yes.
Basically, I just am now envisioning 10 years from now, we're going to have fan art of a giant caterpillar versus Thanos.
From the Thanos copter alone, people know Thanos.
I mean...
But that was all right. That was so DC Shazam. A lot of people enjoying it. Got a great cinema score. It's doing well at the box office. Mixed bag for me. I'll do a quick one because I also trudged out to see Pet Sematary, which
Oh.
looks better. It looks like it could fit in a universe with it visually, the way it's shot and kind of put together. It's very kind of blockbuster horror look and feel. But it's still a weird story. I mean, that story is just so weird. It's kind of odd that they keep thinking it lends itself to film, because if you don't know anything about Pet Sematary, it's not just about a cat who comes back from the dead, which has been a subject I've had to talk about already in this office. But, you know, it's about a family who kind of buys this land, and then it's about grief and loss and death and how you deal with that and confronting that or not. And there's all these flashbacks to traumatic experiences the various characters have had and fantasy things that they're imagining because the spiritual ground is haunting them. And so, like, it's still a weird movie. This one updates and makes a big twist, which, you know, we're not going to do a big spoiler review, so I won't. I mean, you've seen it in the trailers, but it makes a big switch from the book and from the original movie, which was very necessary and I think is the best thing they did, because they put a lot of the horror in much more capable hands than the original story or movie did for the kind of climax. And it is a very dark climax, so there is payoff to it. But it's got a great cast. Jason Clarke, the girl who plays the daughter, John Lithgow as Judd Crandall, like all that stuff. All those people are really good as an ensemble. So if you're a horror fan, check it out.
So it's not a recommend.
No, I mean, it's a home viewing recommend, I would say, for me. Like, definitely. When it comes out on, you know, video, Blu-ray, on demand, or Netflix or whatever, definitely sit down and check it out. It's not a must to go see it in the theater by any means.
Well, poo.
I've still never seen a horror film, so I guess I shouldn't
I kind of wanted
start with
to see that one. I kind of wanted to see it. I don't like horror films either, but I kind of want to see it.
I don't know. I still haven't done it. I still refuse.
Finally, last but not least, the reason we brought our queen of anime here.
Hello.
Big things happening in anime right now. We did a spring anime preview a couple weeks ago, but now the time is here, and we're really kind of kicking things off this week, because right before we came in here, One Punch Man Season 2 premiered, and this one has had a little bit of controversy surrounding it. Right, Megan?
Yeah, as if my life could not get busier with Avengers Endgame coming out this month. One Punch Man Season 2 is finally here after years. And
it's
years
been years.
And years.
Like what, how many, 4?
4 years. It last came out, like, it ended in, like, October 2015. So it's back, finally, April 2019. First episode is here. It's had some controversy. Moved production studios from Madhouse to JC Staff. It switched its entire creative team, director, character designer, everything. Everything changed. Animators and rumors of a stressed production schedule made things very upsetting for fans. And then the trailer came out.
4 years and stressed?
Yes. So this is not the place for it, but it actually, I'm not surprised it was stressed given the anime production committee system of Japan, which if anyone wants to hit me up on Twitter about that, I will talk to you all day. But basically, people were really concerned. Now the first episode's here, and I will say, it's not bad. That's not the reaction I wish I had to it. I wish I could come in here and be like, it's awesome. It was the best episode ever, especially because the first episode of season 1 is so cinematic and it's such a blockbuster, and the tension and the animation is great. This one is very much a slow roll, trying to kind of get you familiarized with the characters and the humor once again. Does feel a little displaced. It could have done better at recapping what happened 4 years ago, since it's been 4 years. Have I mentioned it's been 4 years? But it's good. I'm interested to see episode 2. Episode 1 was very much kind of a soft roll. Hey, remember One Punch Man exists? Season 2 is where we're finally going to see the story come into play, and the new villain, whose name is Garo, who manga readers will be familiar with. So
if you're not familiar, I mean, you really should check out One Punch Man. It's this kind of funny, action-packed, almost satirical thing about a hero who's basically like the ultimate Superman, but is very nonchalant about it. He doesn't even recognize his own powers. He thinks like this insane regimen of push-ups and sit-ups has given him the power he has, but he basically is a guy who can settle any one of these fights in literally one punch that just destroys like anybody or anything. And it's all about him kind of finding his way in this world where cities are broken up into like different sections. There's a whole hero class system that you have to kind of get registered and ranked in. And he's just kind of this kind of slightly aloof guy named Satima going on his way. And it's hilarious about how the first season alternates between this kind of very funny, cutesy animation of him and then to these hyper beautiful action scenes and crazy. And a lot of episodes are built on villains like tearing up things, killing a bunch of people, really harming stuff until he finally gets there. Like, however he's had to make his way across the city or whatever. And he's just sitting there like looking at it, and he just like punches it, like the person that's been causing all this chaos. It's over. The guy's like exploded or whatever. And he's just like bored basically with his
So it's not
as
the
a hero.
fight. The fight is not why you go watch this series. You watch, it's like everything getting to the fight.
So you watch it for the humor, which is everything before the fight. And then season 1, you really did watch the fight.
No, there's some epic
animation
fights.
sequences.
Yeah.
That's why fans are concerned. That humor is still very much there. The issue is the animation.
Yeah.
So this first episode, I will just go ahead and say for people who are super excited, we don't see Saitama fight anyone. So a lot of fans were a little upset because
So there is no one punching in One Punch
it's
Man
been
season 2
4
premiere.
years. Could we just not get a punch? But we didn't get it. We're hoping episode 2.
I remember one of the things we talked about
the one punch.
previous during like the spring, like when we were talking about the spring anime. You guys had talked about where people had seen some of the early like animation and it wasn't up to snuff. And has it like, is it better here? Is it
Still not up to snuff, but they did make some edits to the trailer.
Okay.
We're not sure if whether the trailer that was released just used kind of uncut footage or they went back after fans blew up social media in outrage. So it looks a little bit better, some of the stilted animation, but it's still not that fluid style that the original director brought in season 1.
Yeah, the director in Madhouse, I mean, what they did with season 1 was it's a gorgeous anime to look at, and the visuals alone are just really great, especially that first episode, which looks, because it's made to look almost like a blockbuster superhero movie.
Yeah.
And that's the whole kind of humor of it. It's like the intensity and the screaming, except this guy who just like settles things and like one punch is just like, oh, like it's over.
Yeah, he's so sad. But I mean, that all said, I do definitely recommend this first episode. It's setting up one of my favorite arcs in the entire manga so far. So I really do recommend checking out this episode, getting into the series if you haven't seen it, and then the series is really going to test its mettle episodes 2 and 3 that are coming up. So, fingers crossed.
So, from one controversial anime over to another, we got some casting last week. When I was here in the trenches, we were short-staffed. A lot of things were happening very fast, but we got casting for Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop. And if you don't understand the significance of Cowboy Bebop, I mean, this was like the anime, like I come from an old school, I'm old as dirt these days, and so like I was from a 90s era where we were hunting for Japanimation tapes and like crazy video stores, like independently owned video stores was like the only place you could find these. Getting your hands on manga that was actually translated was like near impossible until like so long after they had just made their way across to the US. And so Cowboy Bebop was the turning point, right? Like that was the anime that pulled it after, like, you know, the manga movie company had released things like Ninja Scroll, Ghost in the Shell, the Street Fighter movie that really kind of caught the mainstream eye. But Cowboy Bebop was like true anime when it came out that just caught on and became very mainstream and went to Cartoon Network and Toonami and really like just changed the game along with some other kind of anime that came along at that time, Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, then Naruto started, like all of that time frame. But this was like the one. I mean, people like passed around the soundtrack. These were the first clips you saw on things like YouTube or whatever preceded YouTube that I don't remember of, like, you know, the whole falling out the window sequence and that whole thing. And so this was a big deal. So, of course, you got to imagine people are touchy about this Netflix live action kind of Hollywood produced version of Cowboy Bebop. But the casting news hasn't been bad so far.
No, it hasn't been bad. So, I mean, just like Kofi said just what I would have done. I mean, Cowboy Bebop is kind of the standard of good anime. It is not only considered one of the best just anime out there, but just like one of the better TV shows that were released during that time period. And as far as space like westerns go, it is just a step above. As far as casting goes, Netflix, for better or worse, learned from Death Note, which we haven't discussed on this podcast because that happened a long time ago.
I didn't mind the Death Note casting, for the record.
I didn't mind
This guy.
We won't get into the debate here because it'll go on for another 30 minutes. I like the movie, though. That's where I stand on this. I don't mind the movie.
That Death Note thing on Netflix got me reading Death Note.
It's good as a Hollywood movie, but nobody's going to try to argue that that's the Death Note anime or manga in any shape, way, or form. But
it's not a bad movie.
No.
However, Cowboy Bebop, this is not something that you can really separate from the original text that Shinichiro Watanabe made.
Yeah.
So in terms of casting, we have John Cho, who's playing Spike Spiegel.
Mustafa Shakir, who's from Luke Cage, and he was just on American Gods this past week, so he's doing all right for himself. Yeah, he's also on HBO's The Deuce, so he's really doing all right for himself.
I believe Alex Hassel is doing Vicious, which I was surprised to see them go ahead and out the casting for the main villain of the series. So A+. Yeah. Always happy to see Vicious.
And Daniela Pineda, who will be bringing a Latin flavor to Faye Valentine, which had a lot of fans also kind of very excited. So the important thing I think in this was that John Cho is kind of approved to be Spike, which was probably the hardest thing to nail. He's an Asian actor, so that's, also getting the band of authenticity from fans. Yeah, and Mustafa Shakir, nobody has anything bad to say about him, so he's going to be interesting as Jet Black. And we're still waiting on one big casting announcement, though.
Still waiting on Ed.
Megan, you have a theory about that.
So Ed, for anyone who hasn't seen Cowboy Bebop, is Edward Wong. However, Edward Wong turns out to be a girl, but she kind of presents herself as a gender fluid character in Cowboy Bebop. Super smart, has a Welsh corgi named Ein, who I am still obsessed with and want a.
And she's like the hacker.
Yeah, she's the hacker. She's the tech person. We don't have a casting for that, but the reports have said, that's ongoing because you can't have Cowboy Bebop without Ed. And so my theory is, given Netflix's relationship with original series like Stranger Things, I would not be surprised if Millie Bobby Brown is being looked at for this title. She definitely has the name recognition that Netflix is going to want for this title. She's proven that she has an interest in kind of global titles. I mean, she's in the Godzilla movies now. That King of the Monsters she'll be walking up into. So I would not be surprised if they did that. But I know a lot of fans are really kind of pushing for someone who can present as kind of like non-binary or gender fluid for this character.
And I think Millie Bobby Brown can also do that. I mean, 11 in Stranger Things with
11, very
Ed,
much so.
she can rock that. And I would love to see that casting. So that's why I just wanted to make you throw that out there.
I'm very much Netflix.
I want to see that happen.
Millie Bobby Brown.
So to wrap it up, we got a couple things just to wrap it up. Do you want to touch on?
In terms of controversial anime, we also have Akira live action is supposed to be happening. The film itself has got a tax credit.
Yeah, we touched on that just an episode or so ago about it.
Yeah,
looking like it was moving forward.
Yeah, directed Taika Waititi, producers including Leonardo DiCaprio. Now the issue that comes with the controversy is a Trade Magazine Production Weekly published kind of a description, loose synopsis of what the movie is going to be about. Has some major differences from the original series that Katsuhiro Otomo made. So the biggest issue that I'll mention here is we're not in Neo Tokyo anymore, guys. We ain't in Kansas anymore. We are now in Neo Manhattan.
Oh boy!
So it's moved us to America.
One of those.
It's already concerning fans. You got but we do still have Kaneda and Tetsuo. They're still keeping those characters. They've replaced a couple of characters' names with more Americanized monikers. The only other issues we have is Kaneda is now a bartender. We don't know if he's still incorporated with his biker gang, but he better still have his sweet motorcycle.
I mean, if he's not part of a biker gang, what the hell are we talking about here?
Also means he's aged up, and also now the two best friends are brothers. So
if I don't see a guy get smashed off a bike with a pipe in a biker gang jousting thing, what am I watching?
I fully expect it. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I will put my faith in it because I have a lot of faith in Taika Waititi and his vision. I am concerned about the Neo Manhattan setting. I'd rather it just be kind of an ambiguous location than them. Also, Neo Manhattan. I'm sorry, just sounds stupid. Just do like Neo York or something. Yeah. Like that sounds better. We got New York, Neo York. Come on, if you use this, credit me. But
I like that a lot.
Yeah, and then the last controversy is Dragon Ball because Dragon Ball is always controversial.
And what's going on with that? Just
real quick. Well, basically, if you're wanting to watch Dragon Ball Z in any good way, it's really expensive. Funimation is releasing a collector's 30th edition Blu-ray, but people are very angry that it is the remastered version because everything fans want is just the original footage. So I believe if it's not, Funimation is about to reach the quota to print these things, but some diehard animation fans are just wishing they could get the original
I can't
footage.
rewatch the new ones because, I grew up, I saw the originals.
Can I...
With the remastered's automatic, so it just kind of makes all the line art blurry and the colors are way overly saturated.
Yeah.
It's just an automatic process. And so they have done remasters. Toei Animation Japan has done them. They look gorgeous, but they're very expensive. And it's really hard to get them.
So Funimation and Toei have done their own remaster.
Two separate. Yeah.
remasters.
So this is the Funimation Dragon Ball Z remaster.
It's not what fans wanted from the 30th, basically. So.
Yeah, it's not what they want. They got the ratio right. The fourth.
Wait another 20 years. At the 50th, you get what you want.
Yeah, that's what we'll get.
When it's on hollow print. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Oh boy.
But that'll take us. That vision of the future will take us out today. This has been Comic Book Nation. If you want to subscribe and ride with us every week, we post new episodes on the site every Wednesday and every Friday. You can also subscribe to an RSS feed that's included in those episodes, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, am I leaving it? And Spotify. Still not Amazon Music, Matt. We're working on it, though, buddy. We're working on it.
Need a counter.
If you want to talk to us, you can always come to the hashtag Comic Book Nation, where we will be watching and responding. Some people have been amazed that we actually respond pretty regularly to that. If you like the show, please leave us a review. We ran out of time today, but we are compiling all your good reviews, and we will be reading. I think we're going to just do a whole burn through where I just section off a whole bunch of time. We'll go through like 6 to 10 of these and just give you guys some swag, because if you leave us a good review and we read it on the show, we will send you some comic book swag. And producer Jim Viscardi,
boom, like this shirt right here. Woo, what?
Yeah, get a shot of the shirt.
Are we not gonna go up for a hoodie?
Sell the merchandise. Sell the merchandise.
Whoa.
Yeah, and Jim Viscardi has been an animal about getting on top of making sure that all that stuff gets to you fans, and that you get your swag. So keep those reviews coming, because we are reading. We are gonna get you some swag. So make sure you bring them here. If you want to talk to any of us individually, you can find me at Kofi Outlaw.
Find me at Matt Mueller CB.
And I am at Megan Peters, CB.
And that'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. Program note, on the next episode, I'm going to be taking a little vacation, so we're going to have a crew in here.
Jim gets to host.
Jim gets to host. Just make sure there's no dead air. That's all I ask. Call him out if there's any dead air. But we're going to do a WrestleMania look back and see what happened at WrestleMania and what's transpired since. Because that was a great episode, and some big things happened that I think will be interesting to look back on, because you guys made a lot of proclamations. So be sure to tune in for that.
Yes, I did.
I'll see you guys when I get back. This is Comic Book Nation. Thanks for riding.
Peace.